Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Esoteric Atlanta. This is an episode that I'm happy to present here on YouTube, also over on the R platform. About 3 or 4 times a year over on Fusion Body Studio, we are going to release a class, 3 or 4 classes that are usually on our library to the public, just to give you guys a bit of a taste of what we do over on Fusion Body Studio. And today's class that I'm releasing is actually a class that we just had where we went over weight loss and exercise science, basically. There's so many misconceptions when it comes to weight loss, especially many of us that grew up in the 80s and the 90s have been taught to believe that you have to do a ton of cardio to lose weight, and that's just simply not true. We know the food pyramid is not accurate either. And so we had a class. I do talk really fast in this class because we go through a lot of information, and it's not the full class. It's about an hour, a little bit over an hour of the class where I talk about different muscle groups, anaerobic work versus aerobic work, the way the body reacts to certain, cardiovascular aerobic work uses oxygen as energy, whereas anaerobic work uses glucose, what that means for your nervous system, for your cortisol levels. And I took this from a workshop that we actually have on Fusion Body Studio. It's called The Alchemy of Movement. And so I go through a few things on this course, but not the whole course. So if you want to take the whole course and get the whole experience, then that is on the platform in the workshop section. It is all the way here for The Alchemy of Movement. And this also gets into some of our exercises, which is on the first tier. So you can do the first tier for $25 a month. You could just the exercise classes, which is a full library full of ever-growing exercises, or you can do $40 a month where you get the exercises and the workshops like the Alchemy of Movement. But we're talking a lot about our weight loss because we've realized so many people are trying to lose weight, but so many people don't know how to lose weight because they're so programmed into what they were taught in the 80s and the 90s. That is just frankly bunk. When it comes to weight loss, basically we've taken a bunch of our classes, exercise classes that are good for weight loss, and we put them in a category so that people know which ones are really good to stimulate the anaerobic stuff, to burn the glucose, to relax your nervous system, to relax your cortisol levels, all that kind of stuff. But we do talk about like the bar classes, strength training, what all these things are doing for you, for your overall health in this upcoming lecture. Now with this class, I have hidden the faces. I took the camera down so you can't see the students. We do value our students' privacy, and I cut some stuff out just because this is typically done on a private platform. So most of the information is just valuable information that you can use to get to know your own body. And hopefully when you hear this conversation that we have, this lecture that we have over on Fusion Body Studio, it will motivate you to take care of yourself, regardless of whether you take care of yourself with us or with somebody else or on your own. The human body is a miracle. The human body is an amazing thing if you only just give it time and you only actually just put the work into it. If you work for your body will work for you. And so without further ado, I hope you enjoy this class, and I hope to see you over on Fusion Body Studio. All right, so for the replay crew, we were just chit-chatting, and so I was going to say this later on in the class, but Paula just had a question. So do you want to go ahead and ask the question, Paula, since we didn't hit record?
Yeah. I just wanted to know which would be the best classes, or maybe you could do a class to focus on our postures, because as we spend so much time on our phones, kind of like bent down on our phones and screens and stuff like that, a lot of us can get that kind of like almost kind of like a humpback kind of back or neck that leans forward and stuff like that. So I was just wondering what would be the best exercises to help our posture, because posture is really, really important. And opening, as you're always telling us to open our chest and stuff like that. So
the best, yes, you're right, access class is actually the bar classes. And that is because it's not just, we actually had one of our Catherines that we have sent me a text about this. And I was like, girl, we've got them in the bar classes. So what we're talking about is a posterior chain. So are you guys familiar with this, the posterior chain? So now if you want, here's the funny thing about me. if, for our replay crew and for you guys, that I see everything as spiritual. Like everything that is in our physical body is really a manifestation of the consciousness. So when we talk about different muscles, we're also talking about the connection, physical as well as spiritual. So the posterior chain, as we see here, refers to a group of muscles located on the back of the body, extending from the neck all the way down to the heels. And so if you see the pictures here, we're going to talk a little about the rhomboids today. I focus a lot on the rhomboids and the glutes as well, and the hamstrings and the calves. These are all things that I heavily focus on, especially in the bar classes, which we are going to get to in the class today. We're going to talk a lot about the rhomboids. And that is because all of this muscle group, everything that connects together, is what's causing everything to pull into its place. So it's almost like it's like a puzzle, or dominoes, or Legos. Like my nephew loves Legos. The human body. So when you have an issue in one area of the body, it's either affecting other areas or it's coming from another area. So sometimes if we have like hunched over shoulders, yes, we could have that because we sit at desk all day, we drive, we're on cell phones. Big boobs can also cause that problem too. There's many different things that could be causing that problem. But if we want to open up the chest, sometimes people are trying just to pull the shoulders back and thinking that's it. But what we really need to do is really strengthen like the rhomboids and strengthen the posterior chain, which is really pulling the whole back together to be able to support that opening to release the tension in the neck. And of course, this doesn't happen overnight. This takes whole lifetime of working on this. Also the core, making sure the core, as we've said before in yoga and in dance and here on Fusion Body Studio, the core, we see the core as being the whole torso. People think of it as the abs, but it's really the whole torso, the back, the front body. But when we're looking at our stomach, like we're going to talk some about the transverse abdominis today. Those are the deep, that kind of run like a belt across the stomach. That connects to the abductors and the inner thigh. And so when we get that strong, which also is connecting to the abductors, making them strong as well, we're then supporting the posterior chain on the back. So basically, to answer your question, Paula, yeah, the Axis classes, the bar classes, the ones that are involving a lot of targeted strengthening, the strength training and conditioning classes are going to be the ones that are going to be the best to help that, because it's going to help strengthen the muscles that are going to support that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes absolute sense. Yeah.
We'll get back to that, but it's so funny you started with that, because I was like, oh my God, we're actually I pulled this up to talk to you guys about the posterior chain today. The glute stuff, we do a lot of glute work, your butt cheeks basically. My friend Cindy, you guys know Cindy, she's been on this class before. We talk about this all the time. There's all these yoga teachers out there. There's just like this fad. It doesn't happen in Ashtanga, but there's like this fad where yoga teachers will tell you to relax your glutes and like a back bending, and both Cindy and I are like, now why would you do that? Your butt cheeks are muscles, darling. Like they are not just there to look cute in a bathing suit. Like they support your lower back. When we strengthen your glutes are also part of your hip, right? So I was just talking to Isabel about her hip. Getting a strong butt is going to help her. And you probably experienced that running anyway. When you're running up a hill, when your butt is really put together, the muscles there, it's easier to push, right? And to get that leverage, because the butt is able to support the skeletal system, because it's all the skeletal system it's supporting, right? So and so we want to make sure it's all working. One thing I love about like the bar stuff, which we're going to talk about in a minute too, because we're going to go through exercise and what it's doing, is that the bar works a lot of like what they call, or what they tend to call, accessory muscles. I don't really like calling them accessory muscles, but that's what they're referred to. They're the kind of the smaller muscle groups. When you think about going to the gym, most people think about doing like the more vanity muscles, right? Like we look at the six-pack abs, right? The transverse abdominis is not the six-pack. The six-pack has value, but it's really just vanity. The transverse, though, if we can get that super strong, that's what's relieving us of back pain. That's what's helping us to stand up straight, that belt, right? And that's deep in the stomach, yeah? And so that's what I love about some of and that actually, if you're looking at things like weight loss or slimming up, those accessory muscles that get really worked and micro movements, like in the bar fusion we do, because they're getting toned underneath, that's what's pulling the body in. Yeah. So even though people don't, the vanity people, which we're all a little bit vain, that's what keeps us coming back, right? Let's see. Let me look at your question, Isabella. Yeah, so it's kind of like, if you can see here, it's like this belt that runs like right here. Does that make sense? Yeah. And you guys can just interrupt. Don't feel like you have to type it in. You can just interrupt me if you need to. And I'll talk about something forever because I love this stuff. I nerd out on this stuff. So yeah, it's just like a belt that runs. And it's like, you know, a lot of women when they have babies have to wear a belt because that gets so stretched out and ripped. That's what it's really supporting. We have women in Ashtanga who have to kind of have that support after having babies to help the muscles kind of pull back together. Now, with that being said, I want to remind the women, well, we're all women here, but your core is always going to look a little bit different from men, just because your core is meant to be more bendy than a man's core, because your body's meant to have babies, even if you never have.
We don't want to look like men anyway. I mean, we want to be feminine.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do, if you go into the workshop portion of this, of our academy, we have the alchemy of movement. What I'm going to do, though, I'm going through my notes from the alchemy of movement. We're going to just talk about the physical body. So if you go to the alchemy of movement, we have all this stuff on chakras, bandhas, the philosophy of exercise being spirituality. And we've talked about that a lot. Like, that's beating a dead horse, right? So what I want to do now is just focus on the physical body, because I know Paula and I have talked about this on YouTube a lot. Weight loss is an issue that a lot of people struggle with, especially women. Our weight does fluctuate, like more so than a man's does, you know, and especially when women hit a certain age, the hormones start changing, things start changing, right? And so, for me, even though weight loss is important, like if you are overweight, then it doesn't devalue you as a person. It just, your body is showing you something is off. And so even if you're going through a time of life where that might happen more, it's your body is trying to re-regulate itself. It's a struggle, right? And I think it does for women, you know, our body does, even in a month's time. I know with my cycle, like I'm about to start my period, my boobs just all of a sudden feel like they weigh 20 tons. It just messes with you mentally, right? And so I really don't want people to develop any type of eating disorders, because that's also imbalanced, right? Being super skinny and underweight. If you're healthy skinny, that's fine. You're very Vata at that point. That's fine. But if you're starving yourself, that's just as imbalanced as overeating. All right. So we're trying to find a healthy balance here. And I am not personally, I know I've said this before, and I'm going to tell you, you do you when it comes to this. I am not a fan of weighing. I'm just not a fan of it. Different body types are going to give a different weight. People who are more, I'm 5'5", I'm around 115 to 120 pounds ish, you know. I could have somebody else who's 5'5", a woman, we probably wear the same size clothes, size 2 to 4, whatever, but she could weigh like 140 pounds. Because she could be more kapha based, so her bones are heavier, right? So I really want to emphasize that as well. Like, don't pay, unless there's a reason you need to pay attention to the numbers, like if you're on a medication or, you know, you've got a lot of weight to lose and that needs to be a marker for you, please don't stress too much about that, right? They are labeling people as morbidly obese who aren't, because they're looking at statistics versus like body type. Yeah. Wow. I think we know what morbidly obese looks like. I don't think we need a machine to tell us that. Yeah. Please do not take the numbers seriously. And you're right, Jennifer. I think it's more probably BMI that would be more of an indicator of how healthy somebody is. But beyond that, I think and this is just my opinion. Again, you do what works for you. I think we need to get to a place, though, back to a place in society where we can feel in our body to feel if our body is healthy or not. Yeah.
Well, I can just share. So, I mean, we do have scales at home, mainly because it's just more monitoring the girls as they're growing up. I don't really like to weigh myself very often, but I kind of just out of curiosity just wanted to weigh myself the other day. And I was like, oh my God, I put on like 3 kilos. But I haven't changed in my clothes. And I know it's because since I've been working out with Jason doing the weight training, I know that I'm obviously gaining muscle because my clothes are still fitting the exact same way as before. like not any, they're not any tighter. So it just goes to show the scales don't help in terms of am I losing weight or not, because it looks like I've put on weight, but I'm actually still the same, but it's just because I obviously gained more muscle. So that just goes to show.
The more toned you are, the stronger you are, the healthier you're going to be anyway. It's going to feed, it's going to help your body flush things faster. The muscles are moving things through the body. They're supporting the structural system. We're learning more and more and more about how strong legs give you more brain power. So for women, that really helps with dementia, the stronger your legs are. So please, yeah, all weight is how much it takes the Earth's gravity to hold you to the planet. That's it. That's all it is, right? And so I don't think any man has ever cared like what this numbers stay on the scales, right? So I can tell I still wear the same size I wore when I was in my 20s, and I know I weigh more than I did in my 20s, but I'm still wearing the same size pants. So I don't wear them as short as I did in my 20s, but but my boobs might not be as perky as they were in my 20s. But you can kind of feel it out, and I think that's the most important thing. And I would rather have someone be, personally, in my opinion, as a professional, I know every professional is going to feel a little bit differently. I would rather have somebody who is exercising regularly and be a little bit, like a couple pounds overweight, than someone who's not exercising at all and be underweight. Yep. I feel like that's a healthier place to be. And you do have to remember that when you start a regular exercise program, you're going to have to adjust your eating, right? You're going to have to adjust the way that you are going to probably be hungrier sometimes, and over time your body's going to get used to it. Which brings us to what the main thing I wanted to talk about with people today, because Isabella, you're so lucky because you did not have to go through the horrific 80s and 90s and their perspective of weight loss. Do you guys remember Metabolife? Do y'all remember Metabolife?
Yeah. We'll give Isabella an idea of what she missed.
I mean, my mother used to do Metabolife. I don't think it's legal anymore. It was literally glorified speed. But
Ours was like, there was a lot. I took a lot of those diet pills when I was a young girl in my teens.
80s and 90s.
Dexatrim.
Yeah.
There was a Dexatrim. And it's like that was a big promoted thing, was diet pills. And I was a freaking teenager. I wasn't even fat.
I know. We would sell my mom's Metabolife because we got high taking it. I don't think we were getting high. I think we just thought we felt fun. It felt fun to take Metabolife. But I think they pulled it, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think they pulled it from the shelves because they were like, this is speed. Like, this is like...
They just transformed it into monster drinks and whatnot.
Yeah. So we went through a lot. So my earliest memories are sitting at the back of a jazzercise gym watching my mother do jazzercise in the 80s, because being born in 1983, that was right into that era of jazzercise, which is so fun. Like they're bringing back the old jazzercise videos. Like they're so fun. Absolutely do them if you want to do them. Richard Simmons, God bless that man. He was a total guru in my opinion. But what happened in the 80s and 90s is that there was this fad, literally for like 2 decades, where people thought to lose weight meant you had to do a shit ton of cardio and do low-fat dieting. And I think a lot of people who lived, especially in that time, still have that programming that that's what we need to do to lose weight. And that is not the case. All right? Now, again, low-fat dieting, I think, is bullshit anyway. There's so much value in, like, avocados, almonds. Like, we're learning that there's so many healthy fats, real butter, or ghee. We're going to do a ghee video soon to put on to teach you guys how to make your own ghee. All that stuff is so valuable for your health, the healthy fats, especially for women, you want glowing skin, glowing hair, make sure you're eating those healthy fats, right? So really, when it comes to weight loss, what we're simply looking for is a calorie deficit. Right? And I know Paul and I have said this before, but I'm going to reiterate this again. And we're going to talk about, I'm going to show a worksheet in a second for doshas for our new people in the replay crew. We're not going to focus too much on doshas. There is another dosha video, plenty of dosha videos you can go back and watch. But that's really going to indicate for each individual what kind of diet plan they're going to follow. Okay? Because, for people who are kappa-based, natural peanut butter on apples would be an incredible snack because you got the healthy fat with the fruit However, for vatas, that's going to make you swell because of the raw fruit. So you have to figure out what your dosha is. And if you can't afford to go to an Ayurvedic doctor and have them test your heart, your blood, all that kind of stuff to really give you a proper diagnosis, there's a very simple thing you can do. Very simple. Just start writing. Yeah, Millie knows. She's going to tell us. Just start every time you eat something. And this is good for people who don't need to lose weight, but notice they have some food allergies, right? And you can't figure out what's going on. Every time you eat, write it down. So you're going to have a food diary, but it's not going to be the type of food diary that they do at like Weight Watchers. Went to many, many meetings with my mother with Weight Watchers too. What we're doing is we're not tracking calories, we're not tracking fat grams. What we're doing is tracking your reaction to the food. So let's say, I'll use this as an example. Let's say you wake up in the morning and you have scrambled eggs and strawberries. After you have this, you write down if you used butter to scramble the eggs, Pam, oil, whatever you use to scramble with the eggs, any type of, if you add, my grandmother used to add milk to her eggs, every single thing you put in that meal, you write it down because it all matters. And then 45 minutes to an hour later, write down how you're feeling. Are you full? Are you still full? Do you have energy? Do you feel too energetic? Do you feel depressed? Are you having anxiety? Sometimes food can trigger anxiety if it's off balance with your dosha. So sometimes when we think about reactions to food, we think about the obvious stuff like bloating, diarrhea, constipation, that kind of stuff. But we also need to be looking at our mood. Now, the mood can also be affected by something. If you're going through something stressful in your life, it might not be the eggs. It might just be what you're going through in your life. But it is something to keep an eye on. So let's say after 45 minutes, you're feeling like crap with the eggs and the strawberries. So the next day, you're going to take the strawberries away and just have the eggs and see if that changes. And if nothing changes, then it's not the strawberries. So we're going to start to play with your food that way so that you can figure out simply what foods work for you and what don't. Yeah, and do that with everything you eat. So you don't necessarily need an Ayurvedic doctor to tell you your vata, because if you are listening to your body, eating that raw apple 45 minutes to an hour after, you're bloated and you look like you're 9 months pregnant. Okay, obviously my body is rejecting this apple. Yeah. But, if I cook the apple in applesauce, maybe that won't be so bad. Does that make sense? So that's a very easy way that you can kind of take your power back. And I feel like sometimes with weight issues, I think a lot of people, especially people who don't have much weight to lose, maybe they're a little swollen, they could just be eating foods that their body can't digest. And so the body is storing it to the side and giving you hunger signals again, because it wasn't able to get the nutritional value that your body needs to fuel itself. So super simple, and that gives you a chance to experiment and figure out for yourself what's working. You don't need a doctor to tell you. You don't need to take an allergy test, pay for that. I mean, you can if you want, but you can literally figure that out for yourself, especially someone like Isabella who's a runner. She might want to experiment with what good proteins, eggs, peanut butter, what's going to give her that sustainability, because she is on a higher calorie burn if she runs every day than people who, and we're going to talk about that in a minute, because Isabella is slim, so she's obviously it seems like her cortisol levels are pretty, we're going to talk about the cortisol levels. So obviously her body isn't being affected negatively by the cardio because she still looks pretty slim and healthy. Her cortisol levels you can tell when people's cortisol levels are through the roof, adrenals are through the roof. And so we're going to get into that because that's another indicator of what type of exercise you want to do. So I'm going to take this from the back part of the alchemy of movement. We're going to talk about the physical body. So the scientific and physical reaction to movement in the body is not just information for practical health issues, but is also a great template to understand how your body is actively working to awaken your energetic body. Because remember, everything we're feeling physically is a symptom of what's happening energetically. Okay? And so there are two main ways that the body creates energy for itself. Only two ways, besides eating. When we're talking about exercise, we're also creating energy. So there's two ways. That's through oxygen and through the burning of glucose. Okay, that's it. So when we're in exercise, the body's creating energy through oxygen and through glucose burning. All right. So when we look at the different forms of exercise and movement as a spiritual practice, it is important to understand the purpose of each exercise. Each exercise has a different purpose and a different reaction in the physical and energetic body. For example, I use this in my classes all the time when I talk about this. We have this thing where we think all exercise is good, and it is good. All exercise is good. It's totally, Jason said it is great. If you want to be a runner, great, be a runner. But we have to also look at what's going on with you, okay? Because what might not be, there might be certain exercises that right now might not be good for you, okay, in this moment. Doesn't mean they're not going to be good for you later. We just have to figure that out. It's going to fluctuate and change, just like our cycles do, right? And that might be for women too, who still get their cycle. It might be some parts of the month you might find your body benefits from one exercise versus the other. So like, we have an apple and we have green beans. Both an apple and green beans are valuable. They are valuable nutrients, right? They fuel the body in different ways. Just because they're valuable doesn't mean they can be used together, right? If you're baking an apple pie, you're not going to add green beans, right? We have to figure out like a recipe, what's going to work to match your energy, okay? So kickboxing, running, dancing, yoga, Pilates, etc. are all very valuable and healthy exercises. They all carry energetic nutrients, but the nutrients are all different. Just like the nutrients of green beans is different from the apple. If we can understand the energetic value of each form of movement, we can then design the practice so we can receive the energetic awakening that we desire and we can feel our best. Have you ever done an exercise program in your life that made you actually feel like shit? Like you just couldn't, you were tired, run down, body was broken, like you couldn't, that was your body telling you at that point that that particular movement wasn't beneficial to you. Doesn't mean it wasn't going to be beneficial to you later, but something was going on. So we have to learn how to read our bodies, right? So of course you're going to be tired, and of course you're going to be sore. Yeah, you have a question, Jennifer? Just interrupt me.
I'm sorry. So I apologize. My neighbor decided to mow, so I apologize if you can all hear that. But okay, so Bryce, can you tie that into the yoga fever? Because I got to be honest, I've been doing some exercises and they've really been beating the hell out of me and I feel horrible. So, yeah, I'm glad you mentioned this.
Yoga fever is different.
Okay.
So yoga fever is common, and I'm glad that's happening to you. I hate that it's happening to you, but I'm glad.
I'm not liking it at all, by the way, at all. It sucks.
So, yoga fever is basically, it's going to happen to any type. They call it a yoga fever because we notice it in yoga because we're looking at energetic cleansing. So when you are doing an exercise program consistently, and it's going to happen to people at different times. Okay, there's no rhyme or reason as when it's going to hit you, but at some point. So when you exercise and you sweat, you're basically, for lack of a better word, it's a little bit more complicated than this, but you're basically creating a fever in your body. Right? You're turning the heat up in your body so that your body can purge. Well, when you get sick with the fever, what's going on? Your body is heating up to purge. All right? When you're sick with the virus, it's because you've got a virus and the body's getting rid of it. So what's happening with exercise is kind of the same thing, but it's burning karma and patterning. So let's say you're going for like 2 months, 6 days a week, doing like bar, let's say, consistently. And then one night, to me it happens typically at nights, and you have a low-grade fever and you feel like shit. And you go to bed and you wake up and it might be gone in the morning, but then again that night it comes back. You have got your body changing patterning. And so it's almost like a compost pile or like a controlled burn. In order to create new patterning, your body has to get rid of old patterning. And so as the muscles are refining themselves, getting stronger, as the fascia is tightening, skin is tightening, all these old toxins that are deep in your body from food, whatever, bad thoughts are going to start to have to come to the surface. It's like cleaning out your closet. Yeah, or I like to, when you pressure wash, you get a hose and pressure wash your driveway, and all of a sudden that muck comes up. You got to pressure wash it so the muck comes up and keep pressuring, washing it so it runs down and goes away. That's what's basically happening in your body. So how do we handle a yoga fever? Now, if you are literally have a high-grade fever, and there's a difference between a yoga fever feeling like crap and run down versus your body actually saying no. And it's kind of a difference between like pain in the body. So we want a level of discomfort. We absolutely want you to have a level. There should be parts of your workout where you're hating life, right? If there's not a part of your workout where you're hating life, then I'm doing something wrong. All right? We want that because that's where the friction comes. That's where the sweat comes. That's where the mental meditation comes. However, there's a huge difference between being uncomfortable and being in severe pain. Okay? So usually if there's a pain in the body, if my student can say it hurts right here and can point to a place where it hurts, okay, we need to stop and pull back and redo something. But if my student says it kind of hurts in this area, then we need to keep going.
Thank you. That just answered my question, because not that I'm being dramatic, but there are some nights I literally feel like I've been beat with log chains. And it's like all through it's every muscle in my body. So if
you're detoxing. That's detox.
Yeah. We've talked about it in the past, but it's like, it kind of comes and goes, but it's kind of coming on. Maybe I'm getting into a little bit deeper some levels lately.
That will happen too. So let me brought that up. It still happens to me. I could do something happened to me the other day. I've been doing bar now myself for 10 years, almost 10 years. Ashtanga for 19 years. And the other day I was doing a bar class that I've done a million times before. And everything was way harder. I was way more sore the next day. What happens is you start to get used to, that's why I repeat a lot of the same movements in classes, is so that you get to know it. Because when you get to know it, you subconsciously drop deeper into it. As your body gets stronger, you start to drop even deeper into it. It's not a forced thing, it just happens, okay? It's like with Vinyasa Flow Yoga, one of the biggest complaints of Vinyasa Flow is that every practice is different, and so you're just skimming the surface. You're never fully getting into the full alchemy of the postures. But when you're repeating the same thing, your body starts to really feel the effects of what we call the poison, right? So like the opening chant of Ashtanga Yoga, it talks about going to the jungle doctor to take the poison. Right, so you're basically, and that's what medicine is, right? It's a little bit of poison to pull out the big poison. When we're in the heat of working out, that's not where healing is happening. We've spoke about this before. When you are in that class working out, you're not in healing at that moment. You're in total destruction. Your body is being totally pulled apart. Healing starts when you lay down on the mat with your palms face up. Yeah, so we got to go into that destruction. Patabi Joyce used to say, oh, new body is making. But he would leave out that old body's got to break first. Old body's got to break first. And he would get so excited when like somebody had a bad knee all of a sudden. When somebody had a bad knee, he'd be like, oh, good. The next knee, then going. So, oh, thank God. And old injuries will come back up. You will start to feel your old injuries. You're going to have to work with it. You're going to modify. You're going to wrap it if you need to. But you're also going to have to keep, because it's pulling that karma up, right?
And so can I ask, Bryce, so it is normal for it to kind of the sickness to come and go? Yeah. Because I've noticed that a lot over the last few months. But then also what I wanted to ask is that I don't really seem to get like a fever like that. I seem to get like a head cold. And I've always had that, because even when like in the past, before I knew that fasting and detoxing wasn't so good for, well, not detoxing, but like that's not so good for vatas. I didn't realize that. But when I have done that in the past, when I'm trying to do like a juice cleanse or something like that, I'll always get a head cold. That's kind of seems to be my body's way of like detoxing, I guess.
So that sounds like it's coming from grief, if that's what's happening.
Interesting.
There's grief coming up. Because mucus can be related to more of a kapha. Balance. Okay. So I would say for that, more cardio.
Okay. Yeah.
To break that up, because something might be breaking up. So it's like in your system might be breaking up by exercising, and it's starting to come up, and that's why you feel the head cold. So I would, in this sense, and we're going to talk about cardio in a minute, I would say more cardio.
Yeah, and I actually wanted to ask you, because sometimes when I'm doing like movements like this that are kind of up, then I'll suddenly find it a bit hard to breathe in my chest, which is weird.
That's some grief issues, some mucus issues. So super interesting. It's all, so that's what we talk about with the alchemy of movement. So the more that's part of I want to share this with people, because the knowledge is power, right? The more you understand, what's actually happening in the target of each exercise, the more you can pick your poison, pick your medicine. In India, we call our practice our prescription. So every morning I get up and I do my prescription. Yeah? To fix me. Right? And it's all from the mind anyway, because it's all created from consciousness. So if that's something that's happening, if that you're noticing that, then there is a grief that's coming up. And it might not be from this life. It might be from a past life, but the point is you're working at this life, right? So if you find you need to cry when you're working out, that's the beautiful thing. You're doing it at home. Just start ugly crying and singing to Britney Spears while you're ugly crying, and it's all good. We wrap it up, we call it spirituality, and we put a bow on it, and that's it, yeah? So just do what you do, you know? And the fact that you were talking about your back, too, and hunching over, that's telling me that that's coming from the same issue. So the strength training to open, the cardio to break up, yeah? Because in aerobic work, so we'll get into that. I'm glad that kind of came up, because aerobic exercise is defined as exercise that denotes intended improvement to the efficiency of the body's cardiovascular system and absorbing and transporting oxygen. All right, so the heart and the lungs work together to move fresh oxygen and fresh blood through the body when you're doing cardiovascular work. So running. I'm sure Isabella's noticed that you guys, when you do like a run, you get a shallower runner's breath, right? Which is supposed to be the breath we breathe in yoga practice, not this deep nonsense breathing, that vinyasa flow, ujjayi, that's a seated pranayama. Nonetheless, it's that deep, shallow, that's that pumping, right? So they've told us our whole lives that the heart pumps. But in yoga, Krishnamacharya in the Health, Healing, and Beyond, they talk about this. Krishnamacharya, who was Pattabhi Jois's teacher, he used to talk about how the lungs actually pump and the heart's a valve. Well, now science is actually saying, oops, actually we were wrong. The heart doesn't actually pump. The lungs pump the heart because the heart's a valve. So when we look at the way, sorry y'all, Ravi's snoring right now, so if you hear horrific sounds coming from my room, that's what I hear all night when I sleep, is that snoring. So if you look at the lungs and the hearts, they come together. They're right there together, right? As we talked about one time, who needs wings? You already got wings, they're your lungs. That's your wings. That's how you fly, right? Is that oxygen, being able to take in that oxygen, and they pump together. Now, the Yoga Sutras talk about this. The Cassiopeans also talk about this. There's another elixir that also runs with the oxygen in the blood that science hasn't found yet. Well, it's in the yoga text, so they knew about it 5,000 years ago, and this is more of a spiritual elixir that moves with the oxygen in the blood. So that is the main value of cardio as far as the physicality. Now, cardio is also very good for the mental stuff too. The mental meditation, the runner's high is that mental meditation, especially in the beginning when you're like, why screw my life? Like, why am I doing this? This is terrible, you know, like, and you push through that and you get in that runner. So it's really good for the mental. But when we're looking at just the physical, we take the mental out of it. That is the absolute gold of cardiovascular work, the lungs and the heart. So for Paula, that my niece, who is 4, May, she has had asthma since she was a baby. And my sister has this little exercise trampoline, and May has it with her toys, and May will be playing, and then she'll go and jump on the trampoline, and my mom will panic because she's got asthma and we have to get the inhaler, but my sister's like, no, let her, because she intuitively knows, that's why she's jumping, she intuitively knows that it's helping her break up her lungs, get that oxygen to expand in her lungs. All right, so that's the value of the cardio, and it also gets the blood to move, circulate through the body more. Speaking of a hay fever, now my nose is really running. So aerobic activity can also be called cardiovascular activity. If we break the word cardiovascular down, we get cardio, heart, vascular, vein system. This also affects the health of the lymphatic vessels, which is part of the system of removing toxins. So sometimes cardio work can help with lymphatic drainage. Now there's an obviously an exception to this if your cortisol levels are out of control. But for me, so I do maybe 1 day or maybe sometimes 2 days of cardio. Most of my work is anaerobic, which we're going to get to. But I do cardio 1 or 2 days a week, mainly for my heart health, to really get my blood pumping. And also if I need a flush. So like if I've had a night where we ate a lot or something, like the next morning I'll do it not as a high calorie burn to lose weight, but to help my digestive system, because you're jiggling that digestive system. That's why they have porta potties at road races, because All of a sudden you got to go to the bathroom. Yeah. So it helps get that blood into those organs. So that's how I want you guys to see cardiovascular work. We got to get rid of this myth from the 80s and the 90s. Cardiovascular work is not the key to weight loss. All right. It is a high calorie burn, but in a lot of ways it can be an empty calorie burn. Okay. In that Soul Cycle documentary, they actually talked about this. I think, Paula, you watched it. It was fascinating. And they talked about how a lot of people started Soul Cycle and they gained weight because they burned all these fast calories and they leave, and like 45 minutes later they could eat a Thanksgiving meal. They're so hungry. Yeah, because you're burning quick calories because the body is using oxygen for its energy source. Does that make sense? Do you guys have any questions about that? So if you want to lose weight, I mean, cardio is great. It's beautiful, but it should not be the main tool you use for weight loss. It should be only used for health reasons, for your heart, your lungs, and for your mental stuff, right? Now, I'm going to talk about cortisol levels. So this is where a lot of people are getting really screwed up and why people are doing all this cardio and they're not losing weight. And so they have to go to Jenny Craig and Weight Watchers and take the Ozempic shot because they can't figure out why their body is not losing weight doing all this cardio, because in the 80s and the 90s, we were told do jazzercise, go running, kill yourself, cycle, Soul Cycle. All that stuff's great for health, but it's not for weight loss. All right, so cortisol is defined as a hormone that helps the body regulate many functions, including metabolism, blood pressure, and the immune system. It is called the stress hormone because it is released when the body experiences stress. So cortisol is, when we have a cortisol spike, when we're under stress, that is good. But when we're under stress for too long, the cortisol gets out of whack. And that's what most people are experiencing. So this is a major problem for many people. Many people are overstressed, overworked, and are making the hectic energy of stress worse by adding too much cardio into their routine. When the body is in a controlled stress state created by cardio, because that's what you're doing in cardio, bringing your body to a controlled stress state, but it is already in a stress state created by their lives, the body goes into extreme survival. The body registers the cardio literally as you are in a war. I'm not kidding. So when your cortisol levels are out of whack and you're going on a 7-mile run or doing a bunch of cardio, your body goes, oh shit, we're in a war. Because historically, survival of the fittest, the only part of evolution I really trust is this whole idea of survival of the fittest, right? In our DNA, we carry all the information of our ancestors. Our ancestors who lived in tribes, who went through famine and plague and had invasions. And so when we go on these prolonged runs, not like Isabel, she's obviously her cortisol levels are fine. And if your cortisol levels are fine, your body can handle this. But if you're already in a stress state, if you've had a hard life, been through a lot, and you haven't taken care of that within your body, your cortisol levels are shot, and then you go and you induce even more stress by going on the run. Your body thinks that you've got freaking tribes chasing you with spears in their hands, and it's panicked, and so it's going to up your cortisol even more. And then what's going to happen when you're done is your body's going to get super hungry because it's going to try to pull as much energy as it can by calories into your body as it can, because what comes after war historically? Famine. So your body is preparing you to go into famine. All right. So if you've been trying to do cardio to lose weight and you haven't lost weight and you've gained weight, that's why. So don't be mad at your body. Your body is literally doing what it knows to do to keep you alive. All right, so we got to fix that. We've got to fix your cortisol levels. If you want to be a long distance runner like Isabel and you want to go run marathons, fantastic. I mean, marathon runners are the most spiritual people I know. Who the hell runs 26 miles for fun? They're not doing that for fun. They're doing that for something more spiritual, right? So we have to fix your cortisol levels. So if you are noticing that with cardio, I'm not saying you're never going to be able to do cardio. But first, we got to fix your cortisol level so your body can, your precious body can calm down. We can get you in a calmer state, okay? So, all right. So again, the number one value of cardio is blood and oxygen. Two things that are high priority in spirituality. Obviously, blood is your sacred DNA. It is also a physical representation of prana, upward energy, or life form. The blood is unique to you. You might share the same blood type with someone else, but the DNA pulled from your specific blood is uniquely yours. Your blood is also the number one thing that can heal you. The healing properties of blood far surpass any medication. So your blood, your own specific blood, getting it to flush, that's the main real beautiful thing about cardio is we're getting that blood to flush through your body so we can get places in your body which are really stiff and tight. We can get that blood in there to heal whatever in there, okay? All right, so oxygen is also a part of pranic life force. In yoga, we call breathing exercises pranayama. Pranayama means the extending of life's capacity through breath. The breath is also connected to the nervous system, all right? So when stress is high, either through excitement or fear, the breath will stop by being subconsciously held by the person experiencing the stress. So anytime you're working out and the teacher or the trainer says breathe, it's because your nervous system is reacting to whatever's happening in that room. And so that's why in yoga classes, we have you in a crazy posture and we're telling you to breathe to get your nervous system to relax while you're also in this high stress state of the body. So breathing is super, super important. Okay, so does that make sense with the value of cardio? All right. Okay. Now let's talk about, let's go into now anaerobic work, which is the main thing that you need to be doing if you want to lose weight or get toned. You want that bikini body? Anaerobic work. So if you're tracking your calories, you're going to see a higher calorie burn on cardio than you are on anaerobic work. However, as we said, cardio is an empty burn as far as calories. It's great for your health, but it's using oxygen. Anaerobic work is using glucose as energy. What is glucose? It's sugar. Or, in layman's term, it's your love handles. Right? It's the wobbly bits. It's stored food. So anaerobic. Well, let's define anaerobic. Anaerobic exercise is defined as relating to, involving, or requiring an absence of free oxygen. So aerobic is with using of oxygen. Anaerobic is without oxygen. Obviously, you're still breathing, but it's your body is not even if you feel your breath, you are in anaerobic work, you are going to feel your heart rate increase. You're going to feel the breath get a little bit more rapid, but your body's not using the oxygen as its primary source of energy. That's the difference. Okay? So, anaerobic exercise is related to or denoting exercise that does not improve the efficiency of the body's cardiovascular system and it's absorbing and transporting oxygen. Anaerobic directly translates to without oxygen. Aerobic is with oxygen, anaerobic is without oxygen. Okay, so glucose, we're looking at glucose. So again, this doesn't mean you're not breathing. You're absolutely breathing. You're going to feel your heart rate increase. You're going to sweat a lot. Actually, the sweat, if you guys notice, there's a different sweat with anaerobic work than there is with aerobic work. And actually, this might sound kind of gross. I'm not really selling this when I say this. Your clothes, your exercise clothes, that you do your yoga in or your anaerobic work in, are going to get a lot stinkier than your running clothes because you're pulling deep, deep, deep stuff up with anaerobic work. So anaerobic work significantly, this is really important, anaerobic work significantly impacts the nervous system by primarily activating the sympathetic nervous system, leading to increased muscle recruitment, faster nerve impulse transmission, heightened motor unit activation, allowing for rapid and powerful muscle contractions during high-intensity exercise. This adaptation is particularly noticeable in the central nervous system, where the primary motor cortex shows increased activity during anaerobic training, enhancing motor control and the ability to learn new movements. So, we just talked about how we're learning that more leg strength connects to what? Brain function. So not only is anaerobic work going to help you lose weight, it's going to calm your nervous system down. It's going to recruit more muscles. So in cardio work, as we kind of talked about in the beginning before we hit record, I think, cardio work, you're going to be using more of the bigger muscles because your body's moving fast. It's using quick oxygen, which is great and wonderful. Anaerobic work, however, is going to use more accessory muscles. So it's going to go deeper into the body because it can. Yeah, because of the way that you're moving the body, it can go deeper. It's more, and even though you might feel stressed and might be burning and everything, your nervous system is in a more relaxed state. So you're not in that fight or flight where you think there's, a tribe from across down yonder coming to spear you to death, right? You don't see Boudica's army coming across to get you. You're able to like relax a little bit more, right? Okay. So from a spiritual perspective, while the body is pulling energy from stored fat, it's also dropping into deeply held emotions that are living within that held fat. That is why you might feel the need to cry in a deep yoga pose. The anaerobic is allowing the spiritual work to be performed, okay? This is vitally important for anyone using exercise for spiritual and therapeutic practices. Although emotions are primarily formed in the brain as thought patterns, it trickles into the mind field. So in yoga, the Yoga Sutras, they call the body the mind field. So we have an emotional reaction in our brain, a thought. That brain gets carried into the body and stored. So when we do anaerobic work, now there's a lot of spiritual stuff happening in cardio too, a lot of mental meditation, but it's different than an anaerobic work because anaerobic is allowing you to go deeper within the physical body, which is always also pulling up deeper in the emotional body of stored information. Does that make sense? Stop me if something doesn't make sense. So this is very serious. Now here's what happens. They are learning, science is learning something that I just chuckle because sometimes spending so many years studying ancient philosophy, I think that sometimes our scientists in the Western world think they're so clever, but I'm like, literally, this is 5,000 years ago they were talking about this. So when we look at things like Ashtanga Yoga, so let's look at the primary series alone, which is thousands of years old, the template. I use that template of the primary series of Ashtanga to choreograph every single bar class, most of the strength training classes. So what am I doing? Ashtanga primary series is interval training. So this is what we're working with in like a bar fusion class, which that's why the bar fusion class is like one of our main premier classes. Because we're working with both cardio, aerobic, and anaerobic. When we look at the primary series of Ashtanga Yoga, the sun salutations are the aerobic part. We start with 5 and 3, takes about 10 minutes. And then we go into anaerobic. Science is now learning that all you need of cardio to get your blood pumping, your oxygen going, to get that exact amount you need for that benefit is 7 to 10 minutes. Interesting. So that's why in like the bar fusion classes, the first 7 to 10 minutes, we dance, we jump around. And then we go into those squats, which is the moving deep. So we get the body nice and hot, nice and sweaty from the cardio, get the heart pumping, the oxygen moving, and then we pull the parasympathetic nervous system into deeper work. Does that make sense? Now, things like yoga, Ashtanga also does that, and a little differently with the sun salutations, but it's cardio anaerobic. So aerobic, anaerobic. Then you get to the seated series where it's really mixing with the jump backs and the jump through, intense zone, what they call zone 2, which zone 2, we have zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Zone 2 is where the real fat burn is coming. The deep anaerobic fat burn, that's the fat burn. So like when you're doing a bar class or yoga class and you feel that deep burn and you're shaking, that's intense anaerobic work that's happening. That's what you're feeling. And you're like, holy shit, my thighs are shaking so bad and I feel like there's a freaking fire. You are burning glucose at that moment. You are burning stored fat. You're also toning those muscles. So if that helps you, if spirituality doesn't motivate you, if clearing out your karma doesn't motivate you, getting nice trimmed thin legs might. So because that's what's happening, right? What that is also doing is that's raising your metabolism. All right, so you're going to find a healthy increase in your metabolism. You're going to be able to burn fuel faster. So you are going to be able to eat a little bit more. Yeah? I love Skittles. Y'all know I love my Skittles. I'm 42 years old, and you give me money to go into the gas station, I'm going to come out with a bunch of Skittles like a 10-year-old. But you know, I can have a bag of Skittles every now and again because I burn. So I have my muscles are so fueled now. Yeah. We also, with anaerobic work, we're looking at a lot of healing with the body, with the joints, because we're toning those accessory muscles. So we're looking at knee issues, potentially healing, getting better, hip issues. Like, well, that's what with Isabella, with her running, that could help her. Doing more anaerobic on the hip with the bar stuff can actually help support her running. So for Isabella, who's a runner, and she's slim, she doesn't show any signs of cortisol, physically, of cortisol levels being out of whack. That's something she'll need to pay attention to, though, especially as a female. If I was her like trainer, which I'm her teacher, but if I was a trainer, if she were my athlete, I would make sure that during the day she was also doing at least like 15 to 20 minutes of intense like anaerobic work on her hips to really sharpen that connection between like the leg and the core. Have you ever noticed like professional runners? So if you watch professional runners, none of them are swollen, right? You can tell their cortisol levels are fine. But have y'all ever seen how toned a professional runner's core is? It's because their inner legs are super toned, right? Because they obviously have coaches that are working that because obviously I want you guys to do this so you live the best lives you possibly can, and you're connected to God, and you realize how powerful and wonderful and amazing you are in your body. Coaches are doing that though for you to win bunches of money that they split with you, right? So their motivation for getting you across that finish line is different from mine, but we can learn from them because their motivation is a paycheck. So they are really going to make sure their athletes' bodies are healthy and toned. And so we can take those lessons from those coaches and say, okay, if this runner, professional runner, has this amazingly toned body, isn't swollen, what is their coach doing with them to get them that way? Well, it's because they're doing strength training and anaerobic work with it. Yeah, does that make sense? Stop me if it doesn't make sense, if something is confusing. That is literally the main thing I want people to understand in this class. I know Paul and I have talked about it, is that cardio, high oxygen, again, it's all great. It's all amazing. It's all wonderful work. I like how Jason said that whatever exercise you do is going to be beneficial. Whatever exercise you do. But if you want to really lose weight, you're going to have to start paying attention to anaerobic, aerobic, all that kind of stuff. Don't pay attention. If you have one of those watches on that tells you how many calories you burn, get rid of that shit. Just like your scales, throw it out. Because in that moment, you might see a high calorie burn, but with the anaerobic work, that's not going to be as high of a calorie burn. You're going to have a longer effect of a higher metabolism over time. Todd and I did a week ago today, we did a 10-mile hike, one of the hardest hikes we've done, 16 kilometers up a mountain. There were signs like warning us. I was like hating life the last mile. And we got to the car, I was like, I'm never going to do that again. And today I was thinking, I might actually want to do that again. But we got down back to the hotel. We took a shower. We stayed in the bed the rest of the day watching TV. We have not eaten that much food. We were so hungry. We kept just ordering more food because we did. I mean, according to my phone, I burned like 1,000 calories in that one hike, but I probably ate like 3,000 calories afterwards. Right? So, but we weren't doing that hike for weight loss. We actually were doing it for spiritual purposes.
I'm glad you guys did that.
Oh my God, I was hating life. At one point,
I know, but yeah, I'm glad you guys did that. I think that we all need to get out and challenge ourselves in nature. I would never do the level you all did, but
I don't know if Todd will do it again with me. But when I got to the car, I was like, I'm never doing that shit again. Where we went, there's other trails that are like 2-3 miles, not that big of a deal. That are great. They're wonderful. They're beautiful. And Todd was like, yeah. And I was like, and then I got like today in class, I was like, I actually think I want to do that again. I got towards the end. I got to the point, those paranormal stories where people think they get in a time loop. I kept turning a corner towards the end thinking I was going to see the parking lot and there'd just be more trail. And I'd be like, oh my God, I'm stuck. I'm stuck in a time loop. This is it for eternity. Just walking. Ravi started crying at one point before we got to the car. So he like slept the whole day. But yeah, for us, that wasn't the whole reason why we did it. I mean, we were drenched in sweat. I got back, my bra we were just drenched in sweat. But that was more so we treated ourselves. We let ourselves eat a little bit more because we were so freaking hungry after doing that. So if you're doing something like that to lose weight, don't do something like that to challenge you for a different reason. To lose weight, be kind to yourself. Understand your cortisol levels might be, your adrenals might be We need to calm you down. We need to calm your nerves. Be kind to yourself. Your body is stressed out for a reason. Yeah? And that your body is precious, and its main goal is to keep you alive. And so we need to take care of that body and give that body love and support. And when we do glucose burning, we do anaerobic, think about it as nurturing your body. At that point, you are feeding your body with that burn to tone those muscles. Those muscles are there for a reason. They want to be toned. They want to be strong. Your body feels better when you're strong and you're toned, and your body is able to function in that way, right? And so love yourself. If you are doing, I find in my experience of 19 years of doing this, a lot of people, I'm not saying everybody, but a lot of people who do a hardcore cardio all the time have a really hard relationship with themselves, and they're beating themselves up. And if that's what you're doing, you're making yourself more stressed out. Your body's going to react in a very different way. We've got to learn, we got to get you to love your body, and we got to calm your nervous system down. Yeah. And so I would challenge you. It's hard for people who the programming runs deep, right? When we've been told for 2 decades or more that you got to go beat yourself up in cardio to look good and be skinny, that programming runs deep, right? And that's hard for people when I say, put your running shoes away for a minute, get barefoot, let's do some bar. That's really hard for people at first. But I would challenge you, if you're one of those people, even the replay crew, for like a month, just do some anaerobic classes and see what happens. See how you feel. See if you don't lose some weight. If you're not sleeping better, if your stress levels go down, okay? Also check your food, make sure you're not eating foods that are adding to that stress, okay? Also blood types. I do have a section in the Alchemy of Movement over blood types. I'm not going to go into too much detail about that because there's, 8 different blood types? And that would be here for all day speaking about all 8. So what I would do is I would take a blood test. You can order one offline if you don't know your blood type. Check your blood type. You're either O negative, O positive, A negative, A positive, B negative, B positive, AB negative, or AB positive. Those are all the options, okay? And then research what your blood means. What does that mean? So I'm O negative. So that means that I have a lot of oxygen in my blood already. For the most part. There's also some spiritual paranormal stuff to that, but we're not talking about that right now. So there's some weird conspiracies around that. Check out Esoteric Atlanta on YouTube if you want to know about that, but we're not going to get into that today. But that means the more I researched that, I learned it actually suited my dosha as well, Vata. I saw similarities. Most athletes are O negative. Why is that? We have endurance as O negatives, and we will go without stopping. Yeah? We need to learn how to chill out more. Todd is A negative. A negatives are lazy. Or A's are, the A antigen makes you really lethargic. Yeah? They like to nap a lot. So Todd has been told, stop napping. Keep going. He'll short an exercise, short if he can. I usually watch him and tell him to keep going. So we're opposite that way. I will do too much. He will do too little. So we have to, so that's one thing you can learn about your blood type as well. Actually, A's, like him, he should be running. He should be doing marathons. I'm more inclined to want to do that because I have O negative blood. He isn't inclined to do that. So it's funny, my sister is B negative, and one of the things about B's is that they're really good at things like tennis. And that's how I went to Australia. She played in the Australia Junior Open. So there's so many things you can learn about your blood type, about your body's reaction to exercise and food too. Now, the blood type diet for me doesn't really work because O's need a lot of protein. I haven't had meat since I was 14. And so, take that with a grain of salt. I think the dosha stuff actually is more valuable to diet than the blood type stuff. But yeah. So let's see here. So muscular system. I want to talk about a couple of the muscular system quickly. I want to talk about, so we have more than 600 muscles in our body. We're not going to talk about all of them because we'd be here all day. Now for me, I am fascinated by the muscles and I know a lot about the muscles, but I typically don't talk about them that much. I might mention the rhomboids a few times or something that I really want you to pay attention to, because for me, I want you to recognize your body as a overall system. and see it more from a spiritual or energetic. I think if we understand our body in a subtle way from an energetic and spiritual perspective, we're going to get more out of it and understand what our body needs more than looking at the particular muscle group and thinking, well, if I do this for this muscle and that for that muscle. Some of us are going to have naturally toned, like my calves have always been really toned even as a little kid. Some of us are going to have some muscle groups in our body that are really toned naturally and some that aren't, and that just is how it is with most people. If you're more pitta based, you're going to tone quickly anyway. So I'm only going to focus on a few of the muscles that I think are really important for overall health and what I really focus on when I'm choreographing these classes, just so you understand why I'm picking these particular muscles to focus on in this class and in a lot of the classes. So let's talk about the rhomboid muscles. This is a group of muscles in the upper back. These are rhomboid major and rhomboid minor. They run between the shoulder blades and they attach to the spine. Okay? They help move your shoulder blade. They help move your arm above your head. They assist in throwing and pulling and rotating the torso. All right, guess what else? The last thing they always say about the rhomboids, which I actually think is the most important thing about the rhomboids, they're the muscles that help you breathe. All right? A strong rhomboid system is going to help the torso and skeletal system not collapse in on itself. So what Paula was talking about, that's a lot of rhomboid. Yeah? So the rhomboid muscle is used a lot in planks, which is anaerobic work. A plank is very much an anaerobic work. It's getting the rhomboid system strong, helps with breathing, and breath is one of the key elements of activation of prana life force. So this is why we don't belly flop in planks, but we work to really, so when I talk about in the shoulder blades, creating a mountain between your shoulder blades and not a valley, that protraction, that's activating the rhomboids and other muscles too. But the other muscles are valuable, but they're also supporting that strength of the rhomboids. So that's exactly as Paula started in this class. So when we do a lot of this, where I'm having you pull muscles with your elbows behind your back, or this, that's your rhomboids. And I'm really, obviously all these muscles, everything, the deltoids, bicep, they're all getting toned too, but the main center stage, the main character is the rhomboids. And I do that, especially in like the bar fusion classes, I do that right before we get to the ball work, where we squeeze the ball at the ballet bar or the wall, the chair. Because when we get to that bar work and we're on our tippy toes and we're squeezing something in between our thighs and we're deep in that anaerobic work, when that burn from those micro movements start to kick in, what's the first thing people want to do? They want to cave forward, right? But when we activate those rhomboids, they're already awake, it's easier to stand up straight, keep the core in, while we're experiencing the sensation of the burning of the legs. So that's why the arm weight system, or a section of the class, comes before that. It's because I'm triggering that for a reason. Get you to stand up straight. Yeah, so those muscles are awake. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right, that's also really has a lot to do with Anahata, the heart chakra, is the rhomboids, because the heart chakra isn't just in front, it's also in back too. It goes through the body. Yeah, so that the rhomboids are all that heart chakra. All right, let's talk about the transverse abdominis. So the transverse abdominis is the deepest of the 6 abdominal muscles. It extends between the rib and the pelvis, wrapping around the tuck from the front to the back. The fibers of this muscle run horizontally, so not vertically, it's horizontal. It's commonly referred to as the cummerbund of the abdominal system. The transverse job is to protect internal organs and stabilize the spine and the pelvis. For women, this muscle helps during childbirth, and if typically weak, this muscle can cause back pain. Even though this muscle runs horizontally and not vertically, it plays a huge part in stabilizing the bandhas, so mola bandha and the perineum, that's that pulling up of that perineum. It can be used for apana energy childbirth, so pushing down, but can also be used to hold waste when we cannot go to the bathroom so we don't poop our pants. So all those times you didn't shit your pants in public, you can thank your transverse abdominis for that. That cummerbund saved you that embarrassment, right? All right, so this muscle, like this particular muscle, is both used for upward rising energy and downward flowing energy. Okay, so one of the most important of all, I mean, they're all important, but this is a super important, the transverse abdominis. When activating this muscle, can you feel it pull up? So when you suck your stomach in, that's what you're feeling, is that transverse abdominis when you actually suck in. Yeah, that's what's pulling in, is that cummerbund is pulling everything in. So when you're pulling in your core, I tell you to suck your belly button to your spine while you're squeezing that ball in between your legs. That's what's activating, is that transverse abdominis, okay? Which then connects to the abductors, which are in the inner thigh. Yeah, because that's the thing. We have these beautiful quadriceps, and these quadriceps are amazing in our thighs, but those are our big old muscles. They're big, and they're so kind, these quadriceps. They just want to take over, and because they're big and strong, and they can take over. And so these abductors sometimes don't have to work as hard. And so when we have a ball between our legs, we're forcing the quadriceps to step aside for a second to let the abductors really be the main working function. I mean, the quadriceps are helping, being the supporting role. Now, the abductors and that inner thigh, that's what carries a lot of anger. So sometimes we don't want to go there. We don't want to squeeze that. We don't want to activate that. But they also connect to that transverse abdominis. So that's why you see in a lot of the bar classes, when you're deeply working the legs, you can sometimes feel it in the core too, because it's forcing that core to get the whole body system, especially when you're up on your tiptoes. That's why in bar they have you come to the balls of your feet, because you're more wobbly. So it's forcing more stability with the muscles, okay? When in your plank, for example, can you not only work with the rhomboids in the back by contracting, but can you also contract the transverse abdominal and the core? So when we push the floor away, can you also feel the belly button pulling in, so that you feel these two systems of muscle actively working together? Since this muscle helps support the spine, that also helps, because the rhomboids are attached to the spine, the transverse also supports the spine. So does that make sense? Yeah? All right, the calf is super important. We know about the calf, a lot about the calf, so we're not going to go into too much detail, but I wanted to bring this muscle up in this conversation is because the calf is the second heart of the body. Y'all probably knew that, right? The calf is the second heart of the body. So the calf is the second heart, and it's a huge muscle for moving the energy from for all the way up into the body, into the core, into the heart. So any like stale blood in the base of the body, the calf is what's helping get that blood back to the heart, so it can be cleansed, if that makes sense. So a lot of times, especially for women, which is kind of silly because we have really strong legs as women, we do things in like a plank position where we dump all of our body weight into our upper body. So next time as women, can you not only feel your rhomboids and your transverse abdominis kicking in, but can you press through your heels in a plank position so that your calves are active as well? And when all that's activated, it's going to force the inner thighs to activate too. If that's something that's hard for you, what you can do, David Grieg used to make me do this with chaturangas, put your feet up against a wall and do a plank and press into the wall. I would have to practice coming up and down the chaturanga with my feet against the wall and try not to let my feet leave the wall, so that I wouldn't just dump into my upper body. So the lower body is super important. So simple trick is when you're in that plank position, flex your feet. I tell you to flex your feet a lot in classes because I'm trying to keep that lower body active. You know, as Marnie Alton says, your feet don't stop at your ankle, or your life doesn't stop at your ankle. Your body doesn't stop at your ankle. Your feet are a huge part of controlling, like the big toe comes into the inner thigh, up into that transverse abdominis. All right, gluteus medius and gluteus maximus. I told you we were going to talk about the butt. The gluteus medius is a muscle in the buttocks that helps with hip abduction, pelvic stabilization, and hip rotation. Pain in this muscle can also be known as dead butt syndrome. Seriously, that's what it's called. This can be caused by two extreme. One is extreme is just complete lack of exercise. The other can be caused by too much exercise. So we want to make sure we're monitoring what's happening in your butt. The gluteus maximus is the largest muscle in the human body. It is a thick flesh powerhouse muscle that starts in your sacrum. It runs over most of your backside. Weakness here can cause chronic pain in the sacrum and lower back. Weakness here can also lead to prolonged injury. This muscle is crucial for back bending and also works to help seal off the pelvic floor. So we do a lot with the glute, right? We do a lot of stuff with the glute. Easy, self-explanatory. We've already talked about the inner thighs, which are the abductors, but I'll quickly just read you from this, from the movement workshop, and then we'll move into, I have another thing I want to show you guys before we leave. Inner thigh muscles are called your abductors. The abductors help move the leg into abduction, which is pulling the thighs into each other, right? So squeezing the ball. Strong abductors help you stay balanced, help with hip rotation, and help keep the hips in alignment with the knee. Okay, so if you're having hips, so that might be something Isabella needs to look at, if she's got some hip tightness or some knee issues, because she is a runner. She's using her quadriceps a lot because they're needed for running. So what might be happening is her abductors might not be getting as much attention as they need to be getting to support the quadriceps in her run. And so that might be why she's experiencing some hip issues. So like in this upcoming hip video, we're going to be doing a lot of rotating the leg this way. We're going to be doing that a lot, like kicking this way to really, we're going to do it no equipment, just to really pay attention to this rotation with the inner thigh into the hip. Okay, and so that's really going to be paying attention to how that femur bone and that hip can rotate in a particular way. Now also with the hips, we do a lot of the same stretching with the low runner's lunge, where we feel the sizzling sensation in the hip flexor. What that is doing for a lot of people is pulling the hip girdle forward. When we sit at desk a lot or sit in cars, our hip girdle gets a little bit out of whack, and a simple stretch like that can actually pull the hip girdle forward. So for a lot of people, that can relieve back pain. So for some people who have back pain, don't go get a steroid injection just yet. Let's just try stretching your hips and see if we can get your skeletal system back into alignment, and that might solve all your problems, okay? So let me see here. So knee problems, hip problems, let's work on those abductors first and see if that we can solve it that way. Get your inner legs strong. It'll also help tone your inner legs. I don't think Isabella needs to worry about that. She's pretty toned. But for those of us who do, it makes your legs all nice and toned and skinny. So the abductors are commonly undertoned and can cause the body to move out of balance quickly. Sometimes getting access to the abductors to strengthen it can be a problem. This is because the abductors, again, are a lot smaller than the quadriceps. In most exercises, the quadriceps will aggressively start to take over the movement, leaving the abductors weak. This happens a lot in cardio, like we just said with Isabella. Because of the rapid movement, the body moves into a gross body response instead of clicking into alignment the smaller and subtler muscles. The inner thigh is also a direct path from the big toe to the pelvic floor. Yoga is supposed to use a lot of the abductor, but due to poor alignment and a lot of times impatient work, students sometimes lack the discipline to connect this smaller muscle group. The work we do in bar-inspired classes help again to reestablish the abductors. By simply addressing the abductors, we can improve physicality in all aspects of our lives. All right, so inner thighs, inner thighs. Your mom might have, I know my mom probably does, anybody that lived in the 80s and 90s, what were they called? The Thigh Master. Y'all remember the Thigh Master? I'm sure my mom has one under some bed. Those are freaking genius. That's your abductors. That's what those are. So if you can find an old Thigh Master, yeah, she knows. Mom knows.
I'll be hitting some garage sales maybe, though. I'll find one at the garage sale.
How about Facebook Marketplace? You could probably find one for $1. And like for someone like for a runner, I would say, before you go on your run, just spend a few minutes squeezing your legs together to wake up your abductors. You don't have to get a Thigh Master. You can just get a ball and squeeze just to make sure they're awakened, and that's going to correct that could really help course correct some of your alignment. You could probably find some YouTube. Oh, it's fantastic. She wore Susan Summers? And she wore the leotards from like the 80s and the 90s. Like, oh, it's spectacular. Maybe I should get some of those and do some classes in some of those old. They had the
you could do a retro series.
Oh, it was hysterical.
It would be fun.
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
All right, you guys, thank you again so much for watching this clip from this class that we did over on Fusion Body Studio. I hope that it helped you. And if you have any questions, please just ask in the comment section below. And if you would like to join us over on Fusion Body Studio, Once again, the link is below, and you can use my discount code BRICE20, all caps, BRICE20 at checkout to get 20% off your first 6 months. And on top of that, you get the first 7 days for free to try it out. So no harm in just trying it out. Again, I hope this was beneficial, and I will talk to you very, very soon.